if I were his coach. I would agree. I would say be a bit more direct, but it's not necessarily Vincent's style. He's a very positional player. He likes kind of these strategic battles, as Magnus does. It's going to be a different type of game today. I don't expect Vincent to go attacking from the off, but maybe later if he gets a chance to mix things up. That's how we beat Prag in the final game yesterday. He randomized it at the right moment, and meanwhile, a queen's pawn opening and this little pawn push, this third move. Magnus, for the first time in his career, played it in Game 6 of the World Championship last year, and a very famous game. Magnus beat Nepomniachtchi in that one in 7 hours, 45 minutes.
Is that so?
Yeah, so he never really... It's aimed towards getting into a Catalan opening, this move order, but he never really played this specific order until last year, Magnus. But Vincent expects it and brings his bishop out.
Yeah, because that game has been studied a lot, I bet, since the World Championship match. One of the most historic games ever.
Yeah, a lot, that game.
And we were sitting here enjoying it, weren't we? That was amazing, one of my first experiences. And it was, I mean, that was brilliant for me to come in with, you guys and, commentate on that historic game. And I think we had a lot of fun going over that game with all its up and downs. So, yeah, it was really, really special moment.
Yeah. Longest game in World Championship history, and it was also Magnus's first win in the match. Nepo basically tilted after that. Over 7 hours. Incredible game.
Yeah, and Vincent has done his homework. I looked at this myself just very recently. I tried to play something very similar in the Chess Olympiad from the white side, but my opponent chose a different move order, and actually I was more scared of this move order because Black now, he will save his light-squared bishop. This last pawn push by Black, it looks a bit innocent, it looks a bit naive, just taking a time out, pushing a pawn, but Black's light-squared bishop has a nice square to retreat to later, and it's actually very difficult for White to play in the centre. The critical idea is for White to bring his queen out, attack some weak pawns on Black's left side of the board, but yeah, Magnus seems slightly surprised.
Yeah, that's a Lico move if I've ever seen one, I reckon. But no, I mean, it's a very logical move, isn't it? Because the light square bishop, I mean, what I like about what Vincent's done here, he's gone for the maximum from the opening. So if you look at his light square bishop, it's poked out on the other side of his pawns, and a lot of times Black doesn't bother doing this, but the bishop is so much more actively in better place there, and this is what we say about trying to get the maximum from the position. So it does come with some risks, but he's saving that bishop with a little pawn move, and I like that, just going for what could well be strategically the best line, and we now see some quite logical moves. And here, this is again very normal for London systems, but some of the more, shall I say, positional London systems, and we have the exchange of queens, David, getting a pretty normalish position.
Yeah.
Normalish, but I'm not a huge fan of White's bishop on this this exact square. This kind of wall of pawns is going to block it out for a long time in the game. Vincent just moves his bishop out. This is clearly still preparation. I looked at this position as well myself. White's plan might be to push this pawn forward. White has doubled pawns after all, but still Black's position is rock solid. And the queens are off. White doesn't have too many pawn breaks. White's only plan pretty much is to push this pawn forward. And meanwhile, Black can just keep the structure. Black can actually stop these pawns advancing at some point.
I mean, there is one other plan, right, in the position for White, and that is to put the, as well as pushing those pawns forward, is to develop the dark square bishop, and put her to f4, and then afterwards you expand on the king side. And then just one final plan, this is why I wanted to mention it, is that the knight can actually reroute itself, the knight on f3. This is quite complicated, so you have to forgive me. It will reroute itself all the way. Yeah, David's got it. This one is just a very common plan.
Yeah, very typical plan. This is a bit of a weakness. So long term, I would agree, but I remember looking at this a bit, and computers were not impressed at all. Black has resources in the position. So let's see what Magnus does. I'm assuming either Juliuis move here, bringing the bishop out, or pushing the pawn. And you were going to say, Simon, about this pawn push.
I was going to say, yeah, I mean, when I've played these positions, which is quite rare, I sometimes get tricked into them to blitz game. I'd never want to play them. I'm always scared, as Black, of this Bertie coming up the board, Barry the B pawn, because that gets rid of the pawn, but it causes a bit of pressure against Black's queen side. But David, you know this much better than me. It's not something to... You can't stop that pawn getting there. That's probably worth pointing out. Black would love to stop that idea, but he can't. And I mean, that would scare me if I was Black here. It would. I mean, I'd certainly be worried about this this push.
Yeah.
But it's not a major problem, David, do you think?
I mean, I guess Vincent studied this position before, or at least is familiar with the ins and outs, so I think he'll find ways to deal with this. But as you mentioned, it's quite nice for white to have this kind of semi-open A file with his rook. It means you can get away with some stuff. Meanwhile, Jovanka's move on the board, bring the bishop out, very logical. And I'm expecting Vincent to maybe move this knight. There is a threat to win a pawn. For example, bishop takes knight now is a threat. Just kicking the black rook away, and a pawn will drop to white's rook. So that knight really needs to move, or you castle and defend it. But in the current position, if I remember correctly, black has 2 moves. You can bring the knight this way, or you can bring the knight this way. It looks a bit odd to put the knight on this edge of the board, but then it does stop white advancing. And yeah, it's definitely a technical position, and who's that going to favour? Usually I would say Magnus, but Vincent, he knows these types of positions quite well.
Yeah, he's
very patient player.
What I noticed when I looked at the game that he played against you is that he's got his opening all worked out. And it didn't seem like you were playing a teenager at all. It just seemed like you were playing a very, very experienced grandmaster.
Yeah, so I played Vincent last year in the final round of the Grand Swiss, and I was so close to winning. So close. But if I had won, I would have come joint second in the tournament. I would have been playing in the Grand Prix, FIDE Grand Prix.
Oh, sorry, David.
A lot of ka-ching was involved. But yeah, it was a draw in the end. And like you said, Jovanka, his opening preparation caught me off guard. He was rock solid. Actually, I was a bit worried I would be worse with white in that opening. But his play in general, just very, very mature.
Yeah. And talking about teenagers, it's great that we have 2 teenagers in the competition. Maybe we might even see a teenager in the final. And the reason why I'm mentioning teenager a lot is because it is competition time. We are asking today, what is your funniest teenage moment? And you can send us your answers using the hashtag #ChessChamps. And one lucky winner will win a signed, this time, Air Things View Plus. Such a cool prize as it is, made extra special by our 4 signatures. Hopefully we haven't decreased the value. And looking forward to sharing and reading your tweets. And I think this is one that I might actually try and enter.
Yeah. All right, I like it. Yeah, we were thinking about doing most embarrassing teenage moment, but we went with funniest.
Yeah.
But it can be embarrassing.
But if you see my pictures as a teenager, you will realise that I fall in the embarrassing.
I don't have any teenage pictures of me, but I would also fall in the category of embarrassing, no doubt. No doubt. All right, you guys start thinking. We will obviously ask you guys about funniest / most embarrassing moment. But first, do we have some more interesting moves in the game?
Yeah, it's the moves we expected, pretty much. Black just developing his knight, very solid square, and white pushing his pawn forward. And this can be prevented. Well, actually, can't yet, but white wants to push his front B pawn forward, the front of those double pawns. And Vincent gains a bit of time by kicking back white's bishop. And white's bishop parks itself on a bit of a weird square. This bishop is kind of in limbo right now. It's just staring at its own pawns. But Magnus, I guess, will be arguing that he's provoked a slight weakening of black's pawn structure on that right side. What do you think of this last couple of moves?
All pretty normal. I'm still wondering. I'm just interested more than anything how black's going to deal with the pawn push that Magnus is going to very shortly play, and I expect Magnus will now play this pawn push. I mean, I have to say though, this lunge of the Gary pawn pushing white's dark square bishop away is very, very useful for black because, OK, Magnus playing on both sides of the board, but I was going to mention his bishop. The dark square bishop was on a great diagonal, Magnus's dark square bishop. Now it's on a really bad square. And I think probably with this move, he's trying to get that bishop back to that diagonal. It's more to stop a black rook coming over, which we might see, obviously, a little bit later on. But I like this move from Magnus. He's expanding on both sides with that one. And we can see that Vincent just pushes forwards, gaining space as well.
Yeah, but like you said, Simon, once the bishop comes back here, later black's rook will not be able to use this square. The B8 square will be deprived of that post, and Jovanka's plan, the one mentioned a bit earlier, is also in play. For example, if black just plays a very natural move, pushes a pawn, the white knight is coming, and actually, it's very hard for black now to defend this pawn, because right now the white knight attacking it, as mentioned as well, the black rook, if it ever tries to defend, will simply get kicked away. White's pieces all have the perfect squares. Black's pawn chain will start to crumble. These pawns will just start dropping one by one. So this is where Magnus's knight is heading, the a5 square, and Vincent needs to find an antidote. I should also mention I have bad experiences on the black side of this pawn structure. Bad recent experiences. I lost a game to Arjun Erigaisi, another semi-finalist in this pawn structure when I had black. I defended, everything was fine, but I just got really, really passive defending, especially this pawn. And I think after 50, 60 moves, my position just cracked. It was unable to hold on to all of these pawns later in the game. Just like Magnus is doing, he played on both sides of the board with white. So Magnus has a space advantage here with some pawns, also with his last pawn push, trying to gain some space as well.
Interesting.
Tense endgame, but top players, they need to master these pawn structures.
And are we already in the endgame? Only one set of pieces have left the board, the queens. How often do we see that is the first piece to be taken off?
It's true, actually. It's the only piece.
Yeah.
Even though the pawns are still on the board. Very rare.
Huh. But does that mean we're in an endgame?
I'd say middle game.
Yeah.
Queenless
Okay.
middle game is
Queenless
the
middle game.
technical term, Kaya.
Okay. It doesn't look like an endgame. I will definitely say that, yes.
No. Plenty of tension here, and Vincent increases that tension by pushing in the centre. And I don't think Magnus wants to take that pawn. Black's knight will just spring to life. Maybe he just gets on with his plan.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I wonder if he'd push the pawn or move the knight around, the two plans that you've both mentioned. I mean, maybe move the knight now, I guess. But I like this move in the centre from Vincent. He's got to try to create some counterplay somewhere, and the centre seems like the most natural place to do that. I mean, I'll be honest. This is again, this kind of position is really a matter of taste, isn't it? And my taste would avoid this position
With black, yeah.
and probably with white, I have to say, because you know, it's refined taste to play this all you like. I see people, especially club players, who go into this kind of middle game. And they've been doing it for 20, 30 years. And, you know, so, yeah, refined taste, I think, is a nice way.
Why change a good thing, you know?
Well, because they don't... I've seen... This is one of the problems with a lot of club players. They stay the same rating, like, let's say, 1800, all their life, but they never change their openings or anything or the way they play. They're like, you know, they're old. You can't teach an old dog new tricks, but you've got to change. It's normal in life to change, yeah? I mean, just even if it makes you worse, you know, just change. Don't play the same old stuff all the time, you know?
You know, I changed and I lost like loads of rating points.
You're going to, but at least you're learning from losing, right?
Yeah.
As you said earlier, you know, you're
That's
learning from
true.
the process.
That's
It's all a learning process. I mean, you know, I do say you should stick with the same openings for a long, long time, but you should try new things out, surely, David? I don't know. What do you think?
Experimentation is normally the way to find your strengths and weaknesses, and they do say that that's the definition of madness, right? Just doing the same thing time and time again, just expecting different results.
It's true.
So, I mean, that's where I found I made my biggest jump as a player, was when I started learning new things, opening my mind. And like Jovanka says, I lost plenty of points in the early days when I was trying out new openings, but eventually, once you master those new structures, those new ideas, it pays off. You gain those points back. It's all a journey. Chess is a journey.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And meanwhile, we did see a trade of pawns in the centre, and Magnus deciding whether to maybe attack this black knight in the middle with his dark squared bishop, or maybe the white knight will move again, or push this pawn. It's like a combination of all the plans we've discussed. And he's just getting rid of his doubled pawns, first of all, but he's also trying to loosen up black's pawn structure. And this pawn, it can be traded off, but it's not lost because white has this pin on the A file. White's rook in the corner does a great job, so black can only capture this pawn in one way, and white's knight is able to recapture. So just a softening up of black's pawns.
Huh.
Still in the balance. It's very tense, queenless middle game.
Yeah.
Still a rarity. At least a set of pawns have disappeared. Another set of pawns are about to disappear. It's starting to kind of clarify the position. But whose favour? It's still hard to say. I like what Vincent's done, just staying very, very calm. Jovanka laughing at your tweet there.
I'm just
there it is.
I thought I'd subject the world to a picture of my teenage self. I'm sorry, guys. I'm
old
sorry,
were you
everyone.
here?
I think I was around about 16. I was 16. I hadn't yet accepted I had curly hair. I didn't know I had curly hair, so I would brush my hair straight every day, and it would just like grow like this. And yeah, there it was. I was an E4 player then, and I was playing at the British Championships. I think that's in Torquay.
Very
And
cool.
I was, had big glasses as well.
Yeah.
Like, that was...
You were completely different, I have to say.
I mean, I think you can maybe mention this time when we went to play in the Under-20 World Championships, talking about funny moments. There was a photo. It was a great photo. I've got to find it. I won't be able to find it today, but if you follow us on Twitter with me and Jovanka at the disco there, but that was after the last round. I think, we're about 18, 19 years old. And I do remember one funny moment, but do you want to...
Yeah, it was one of those drunken moments. Probably my most embarrassing thing I've ever did, which is just... got drunk and I poured some beer over a grandmaster.
Oh.
But I was, in fairness, he wasn't... He made a bet and he didn't stick to his deal. His part of the deal.
Oh, so you did... It wasn't the...
No, it was deliberate. I did it deliberately, but it was a drunken thing, and I think I asked Simon,
great.
and Simon goes, "Yeah, go for it." I asked everyone was like, "Yeah," and at the time,
I like the way, Jovanka, that you asked me, you know what I'm going to say. Yeah. You're like, Simon, should I throw a pint over this person's face? Of course you should, Jovanka.
It's a good idea. Look at that, that he's made a deal, he's broken it, of course,
nice.
and so...
Oh, it's brilliant. I remember it, this pint going flying all over this this
I mean,
player's
everyone
face.
has that dream at some point to just go up to an idiot and just...
Throw a pint over them.
Yeah. I like it, Jovanka.
Yeah, well,
Feisty.
I've never done it since.
Can we name this grandmaster?
No.
Okay.
But in later years, I met him again, and I was actually playing adjacent to him. Before that, he'd had a firm. He was not making any eye contact with me whatsoever. But because I changed so much, I'd lost quite a lot of weight. I didn't have any glasses. My hair was curly. He didn't reckon. He was like looking at me, going, and then he saw my name and he goes, Yeah, sorry.
I like it. So we have a fun story from teenage years in the studio. Bring us yours as well, using hashtag #ChessChamps. One winner will get an AirThings device signed by everyone in the studio, even the beer thrower here.
Your new nickname, Jovanka, the beer thrower. I have to say, don't mess with Jovanka. If you see Jovanka out and about, make sure you're polite. Otherwise, you might be getting a beer over your face. No, Jovanka's too lovely for that. I'm only joking. It was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Have you ever
All sports seem to have English hooligans. Even chess.
Yeah.
I mean, Jovanka being an English hooligan, it just doesn't... No, it just doesn't work, does it? Not at all. So it was well deserved, I think, at the time. Well, I don't know, I was drunk, probably. Can't remember. So,
All right. Well, going back to the board, two knights on supporting each other. I don't know, maybe not that, but they're all next to each other.
Yeah, supporting their pawns. These knights on the queen side for white look pretty good. They're ready to jump in if necessary. Right now, though, it's still about this tension with the white b pawn. Just to clarify, just to reiterate, it cannot be captured this way because the black rook would fall. Rook takes rook. It's not protected. This would be a deadly check. White would win a piece. And likewise, black doesn't really want to capture the other way right now. Firstly, white could safely take this pawn due to the pin again, but the central pawn might look even more juicy. You could take this pawn off. You're attacking this bishop. You're threatening to jump in with a nasty check. A nasty fork, and white's knight would just be too powerful to deal with. So it's a bit awkward for Vincent. He doesn't really want to touch this pawn. Magnus has just kind of jumped to this square with his knight, defending the other pawn. And OK, what ideas could black come up with if he doesn't really want to change the pawn structure? Any suggestions here?
I just don't really like black's position. I mean, I know that it's probably totally playable. Maybe I'm a bit biased, but it just seems like white has all the ideas that both of you have mentioned have been white ideas. I mean, where are black's ideas in this position? What should black be doing here to get some counterplay? I mean, I don't know.
That's a good question. I mean, the first move that came to my mind was planting the knight on this square. You're attacking white's bishop, you're attacking this pawn, but white's bishop can move from any potential exchange, gain a move, gain tempo as well, hitting this rook. I guess black could castle, for example. I mean, you can move this rook. It's still not too late to castle the king. Not necessarily to safety this time, but just at least now you're connecting your rooks and you're asking a question finally of this pawn. Okay, to me this looked very natural. Maybe there was some tactics, for example, in this position of a trade of pawns and white's knight jumping forward, something like this, where suddenly this dormant bishop comes to life, and some tricks like this. I think this is what perhaps scared Vincent into playing the move we'd see on the board. Vincent, maybe scared of a sacrifice on this square, blowing the position open, has retreated his piece. And suddenly after this move, I agree with you, Simon. Suddenly this is a passive piece. I don't really like the momentum for black.
Where did black go wrong?
Yeah, I mean, maybe he's still fine, but...
Yeah, maybe. I mean...
Yeah, maybe it's just that type of position which looks nice for white, but it's still hard to crack for black.
Yeah, OK.
We have a draw in game 1 between Liam Le and Arjun Erigaisi Liam with the white pieces. Only 20 minutes that first game lasted. It is a draw. They will now have 15 minutes to rest and prepare for game 2, where Arjun Erigaisi will have the white pieces tied after 1 out of 4 rapid games in their semi-final match. This one seems like a lot of play left in this game.
A lot of play left, and the other game they played doubly as fast. They played 35 moves, and we're still on move 18 here. So, yeah, speedy stuff from the Vietnamese player and the Indian player.
Does that mean we are bound to see some time trouble in this game, do you think?
It's possible. Depends how much more the position simplifies over the next few turns. Yeah, I mean, there's still enough tension. It feels like Magnus wants to obtain a time advantage. He's playing slightly quicker, castling his king now. Again, not about king safety, more just to get his rooks connected. But yeah, it's hard to say. I have a feeling that Vincent, in a few of the games today, will be under some time pressure. When I've played him, both online in lots of speed chess, but also over the board in that game at the Grand Swiss, time pressure. It did occasionally play a part, so black does the same. Black copies, castles, and still very tense.
I think I remember from his quarterfinal yesterday against Prague that he handled time trouble very well, Vincent.
Yeah, he gets low on the clock, as far as I remember, but he handles it well. When you're young, he calculates so quickly like Vincent does. It's easier to navigate when you're down on the clock, I guess.
I mean, there is a pawn in pre now. I mean, sorry, just looking at the position.
Yeah.
I mean, black's castled and he's left his Harry pawn on pre, and I'm just thinking, well, you know, I see a pawn. Grab a pawn. You know, and obviously you should look at the most critical moves first. You shouldn't believe your opponent. You should work out what happens if you take this pawn. I mean, I don't know if you take it first of all or grab a pawn first, but what is going on if we just grab that pawn and attack the rook?
Feels like, I mean, that was completely off my radar for a second. I just completely forgot. Has Vincent forgotten? Surely not. But where does he move his rook?
I mean, I guess he's going to get enough counterplay on the queen side somehow.
Maybe this square.
Something like this, but...
Maybe even this square would be clever, just because the position is about to open, this pawn is attacked.
Yeah.
If we see a trade of pawns, the rook comes to life.
Yeah, and this is probably Vincent's idea to get enough counterplay, and, OK, Magnus going for something else instead.
He doesn't yet take this pawn, but it's still there. It's up for grabs.
I was going to say, I think he's... Oh,
Takes
no,
it.
he takes it.
Yeah.
And I think we'll see the rook go to the open line, attacking the knight. And now the knight centralises itself.
Yeah, it's really... I mean, it's hard to evaluate this position. This pawn is up for grabs. Black's rook can get active, but again, the white knight looks really well placed. This pawn is defended right now, but it's an eternal weakness. It's so hard to call. Maybe the simplest move would be to take this pawn with the bishop, just to kick away this really strong knight, ask it to make a decision at least. If we see a knight takes bishop trade, at least black's got rid of his bad bishop. And who knows? I mean, evaluation bar thinks black's maybe even slightly better, but I'm biased. I would take the bishops. I would take white, perhaps. How about you guys? How would you evaluate this position?
Black's got lovely pawns in the centre there, it seems to me. And, you know, nice open file for the rook. But as you say, it's really hard to evaluate. I don't know. I mean, I guess roughly even is kind of fair, with chances for both sides. Is just a fair assessment of this kind of position, really.
Yeah. I feel the same. You know, it's so dynamically balanced, and you know, yeah, black has got nice pawns, but you know, white has got a protected outside pawn over there, Harry, and that could be something that does a lot of damage when the pieces get traded off. And of course, white has the bishop pair as well. So both sides have got their advantages, and I don't know. It's going to get messy. This is the thing with this kind of position. You know, it did look like white was controlling the pace of the game, but now it looks like it's completely wild. Anything can happen, and I feel that the position is so critical that we're going to see who is going to get the advantage in the next space of the moves.
Yeah, the next few moves are essential, and I was about to say maybe it's time for Magnus to just blow open the position, and he does that. If these pawns get exchanged, suddenly this white bishop, the fianchettoed bishop, will come to life on this diagonal. Got some targets there. Suddenly the white knight, if these pawns disappear, the white knight might get into the game, centralize. I love this last move by white, but clearly black is solid enough. It's getting really complicated. Got to calculate. I'm surprised Vincent didn't take this pawn on the last move, because now suddenly he has to start counting. For example, if bishop takes pawn, what happens if pawn takes pawn? This is another capture and another capture and another capture and another capture, and it's like, ugh, hurts the brain. So I think in practical terms, it was maybe wise not to allow all this chaos. But Magnus, he's jumped on the opportunity, and we might well see that variation after the pawn has stepped forward, because black does indeed capture, and suddenly this knight is en prise. Ooh, there's tactics here. I mean, this is an idea. Knight takes pawn with a double attack here.
You've got the other way, haven't you? Can you not take the bishop and take twice on d5 as well? I mean, that looks... I guess black is getting enough counterplay, but this is so much to calculate here, and I want to open up the light square bishop, yeah, with this move.
This piece, yeah.
I mean... I look at this, and I look at, unfortunately, evaluation bar is like biased in my view, as is just 0.0. And I'm like, come on, evaluation bar, get your act together. Are you still waking up? What's going on with you today?
It's not nice when you're being flatlined by the evaluation bar. You're getting really excited about the position. It's like they're going...
nothing going on. Computer says no.
Yes.
So...
But looking at it from my point of view, I look at the position, I'm like, yeah, and the bar.
Yeah.
That's waking me up.
But it's certainly not boring, is it, David?
Yeah.
I mean, this is certainly not just 0.0, nothing going on.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, Magnus right now, he's burnt 1 minute, but he has to burn even more time. He's got this capture to calculate, as we showed, this one, as we showed, and also pawn takes pawn on the radar. So 3 viable captures, which all lead to 5-6 move variations. Ugh, I don't envy the Norwegian's task right now to calculate all of this. He's going to have to spend a lot of time. Critical moment, as we said. And the bar, I think it's ready to shoot in either direction. It might go very far to white's favour, also could go the other way.
And he's taken the pawn, and still loads of things to calculate, as you highlighted. Gosh.
Too much.
Because it's like every single move, you know, there's like the 3, the captures, the checks, the threats. Look at that.
I mean, just look at the minor pieces. Look at the knights and bishops. They give me a headache. I mean, they're all over the place in the middle, aren't they?
It's like someone randomly threw them onto the board.
Exactly. Yeah, just get the pieces and whack them on, and they have no real normal harmony.
Yeah.
You know, they're just very, very random. But
spread out. It's undefended.
Yeah, and it's clearly a critical moment, isn't it? Now, this is where, at this moment, the game could easily turn to one side's favour. Slight inaccuracy, and you're going to lose this now.
Okay. From both sides.
Yeah, exactly. And, I mean, the way I would approach this is, if I were Vincent, if I were ticking down on the clock, I would think, OK, how can I just control things? First, I would do all the calculation. If it was still a blur in my mind, which it is right now, then I would just try and control things. OK, it's level pawns right now. If you could maybe just stop all the craziness, stop all the fun, trade off some pieces, maybe that would be one solution. Black's central pawn could just push forward, try and block it up, try and keep things closed. But yeah, in the end, it's so hard. If you get caught up in the moment with, there he goes, I think maybe the most human move. It does allow this one. Wow. Magnus leaving his knight at the top of the board to get captured, but he's attacking black's rook. That white knight on the edge of the board attacking black's rook and attacking black's dark squared bishop. Oof, everything's hanging his really hard to...
Should Vincent now take the white knight?
I think he needs to save his rook.
Okay.
That black rook on the second rank, it's attacked right now by the knight on the edge of the board. You can't get rid of that knight, at least. Obviously, you want to capture white's pieces, but the rook is the most important right now. And, OK, he does shuffle it one square to the side. We see black's dark-squared bishop fall. Which knight do you take, even, right now? You can take both of those two white knights. You can choose. He takes this one.
I'm surprised at that one, actually. I thought that he would preserve his bishop.
I think he had to be careful of the pawn in the centre, didn't he? That was the problem. And but now Magnus, as you said, Jovanka, he can get the bishop pair if he wants. He can grab that bishop, and it'll be 2 bishops versus 0. And Magnus loves those positions, and it does seem quite open. Maybe he can sack a pawn in the middle to open them up more. But visually, again, this shows how little I'm understanding of this game. I really like white's position because I'm sort of just I'm just counting up the pawns as well. OK, I'm a bit slow today, and it is 4 pawns each. But the 2 bishops look lovely. OK, and he hasn't done that.
Why did he take the knight and not the bishop?
That's not a question for me. I don't know.
Good question. I think it's so that he could play this move. If you'd taken the bishop instead, then black's knight, which would have then been on the board, could have captured this pawn. Now the remaining black knight cannot capture this pawn because look at white's light-squared bishop and look at the black rook in the corner. They're on the same diagonal. Black's knight is actually pinned on that diagonal right now. So I think he just wanted to open up his bishop. That was the priority. I think he's focusing on his own pieces.
Would Alpha Zero take the other one because it loves the bishop pair?
Quite possibly. I think it's a matter of taste from a human point of view, but it's still unclear. We'd probably have to analyse that position for quite a while to decide which capture was best. In the end, Vincent, he's just trying to eliminate white's central pawn.
I think this is a good decision that he's made, moving his rook to the E line. You know, he's just simply saying, let's change the nature of the position so that all the pawns remain on one side of the board. And that way, the bishop pair is just slightly less effective. And, well, decision time from Magnus. Is he going to try to hold on to the pawn, or is he perhaps forced to play rook takes pawn and try to work the position from all angles? And whilst Magnus is thinking, I know this is a super tense position, but I have a few more stories to share with you. Do I have time?
Yes.
The first one, Teenage Blues. I bet you'll recognise this young fella.
Is it David?
Yes,
The days I had a bit more hair.
Oh, you tweeted that, David.
Yeah.
Nice.
And
Very nice.
And Robbie tells us a story. It says, talking of drunken stories, I have a few. A happy one is the Smith and Williamson Young Masters in Guildford. Drunkenly remember being in the pub and had an arm wrestle. Does this ring any bells, by the way?
I don't know who Robbie is, but I do remember the Smith and Williamson Young Masters, and I do remember various stories going on there. But I can't remember arm wrestling Robbie in the pub. But it probably happened. I remember there was a lot of car surfing going on, and I'll just leave it at that.
Okay.
Interesting. Arm wrestling, I bet you're good at that, Simon. We did see both players now make moves.
Yeah, both players capturing pawns, so both the central pawns have disappeared, and this is a key move from Vincent. White, remember, had the 2 bishops. We normally rave about the 2 bishops. We love them, especially on an open board, as this one is right now. But if the light-squared bishops get traded off, it's less clear. All of White's pawns are on one side of the board, and knights tend to be good when it's just pawns on one side of the board. So a good exchange, I think, a necessary exchange by Vincent. The black knight as well is ready to jump in if these bishops disappear to a really juicy square, the f3 square. Watch out for some black knight jumps, some checks, forks. Oof, suddenly, I don't know, maybe I'd prefer taking black. It's just one of those games. It's like we're changing our opinion on every move, but in terms of ease of play, Vincent's found a clear plan. The black knight in the centre of the board is just fantastic. And it's up to Magnus now. How does he try to keep pieces on the board? How does he try to keep tension and winning chances? Not easy.
And Magnus as well, ticking under 3 minutes on the clock.
And I need to know who Robbie is as well. So, Robbie, please let me know your real name. But I agree with you, David. I mean, this position doesn't... Seems like, you know, black's pieces are harmonising a bit better here. in the centre of the board at the moment. So, yeah.
And, you can even see some, and I know I'm getting a bit ahead of myself, but you can even see some danger for the White King. I'm looking at those checkmating possibilities, and I'm thinking, well, if a knight launches itself on the f3 square, the White King doesn't have too many squares to go to. It's in a cage. So this is something that White will have to bear in mind.
Yeah, maybe we have to show this because it's going to be really relevant in a second. Let's say, I don't know which move. OK, White moves his rook up, and this idea might be on the board. Jovanka, Black could give a check. This king is really stuck. Does it really want to go into the corner? Probably not. So capture here, and as you mentioned, this is a mating net. It's a box, and you can never get out of the box because the bishop controls all of your escape squares, and all Black needs to do is conquer the first rank. For example, a big mistake here would be to bring this rook up, and this would be checkmate. This is a very typical mating pattern called the... Don't know what type of checkmate it is. Jovanka? Simon?
I don't think it has a name.
Okay, just checkmate.
Yeah.
The Keymer checkmate.
Our favourite one.
You can call it the David checkmate now if no one's claimed it.
Yeah.
So,
But there's already a David checkmate.
Howell checkmate and...
Oh, is there?
Yeah, there's a David and Goliath.
Ah, that's... Boo.
You already got...
Checkmate.
Okay, Howell.
Third
But you've
check.
even got an opening as well.
Ah, the Howl attack. It's not named after me. Alas.
Well,
So this knight check is possible. You could also make an argument for trading off the bishops and then planting your knight in here. And again, there are all sorts of checkmates. For example, the Black rook coming in and behind and checkmate next move. This is called the
Hookmate.
hook checkmate.
Yeah.
No idea why, but it's called the hook checkmate.
He's in a hook. He's hook, line and sinker. No, I don't know.
Well, chess and boxing. It's a thing. And we actually have a video of chess boxing, Simon commentating on that strange but very cool sport. We will show it to you either today or during the big final.
Yeah, so right now, Vincent, critical moment. He needs to, I think, choose one of these two moves. Either throw his knight in with a check, he'll end up with a bishop on this square, or if he wants to trade off the bishops, he can also end up with a knight on this square. I'm not sure which one I would want, to be honest. It's a hard call, but either way, Magnus's king is going to be in a bit of trouble, perhaps. He's got to be really careful, walk a tightrope there. So let's see what Vincent chooses. Under 1 minute now. Needs to speed up. He's played, superbly so well so far.
Yeah, he's just got to be careful of the time at the moment. I mean, his position, as you mentioned, looks great, I would say, because, OK, the evaluation bar might say even, but generally it's who has the initiative, has the better chances, because you put pressure on your opponent, and we know Magnus maybe doesn't like defending if he can help it. So Vincent's just got to move, and, he's spending too long on this move, though. Far too much time.
25 seconds.
I think he's being a bit of a perfectionist. This is the one thing I've noticed with both Vincent and his coach, Peter Lecco. They're perfectionists, which is great. But sometimes in speed chess, got to move, got to just choose one. Trust those instincts.
3 minutes almost. OK, here he comes.
Yeah, he trades off the bishops. We said this was fine. And now the Black knight, I'm assuming, will jump in. Black's pawn on the other side of the board, the A pawn, is just going to drop off eventually. Both of the White rooks are looking at it. Then White will have a 3 versus 2 pawn advantage on the right half of the board, but it's more about the placement of pieces, and that Black knight is going to be super strong. 4 seconds with that move.
Wow. He spent too much time, I think. I mean, like, this position is quite easy to play, thankfully. If you can just throw the rook down and go for that hook checkmate, great. And you've got to just try to activate your rooks, really. This is the key thing, and play your pieces.
But I suspect Magnus might take the liberty and actually get greedy.
Mm-hmm. It looks possible. You don't want to bring your rook on the first rank off the first rank. You want to take the pawn maybe with your rook on the 6th rank.
Yeah.
I was also wondering if you could go after... So the reason Black's knight is so strong is because there's a pawn protecting it. Maybe you could go after that pawn as well, but...
I think if you take the pawn, Black probably has a forced draw there by just attacking on the 7th rank. But I think Magnus will be happy now to get a draw in this position, because it is dangerous for him. So...
He's an ambitious guy, though. Maybe he'll be trying to make use of the fact Vincent's on 14 seconds.
Yeah. I mean, he could also try to attack sort of this pawn that's holding Black's position together on the king side. There's a pawn that's stabilising the Black knight, and you've got to look at these key points in the position. If you can remove that pawn, then Black's position actually falls apart. So that's another thing where my eyes are drawn to. Yeah, and as David shows there, maybe the rook can come over and aim for that one, but this is very risky because black can support that pawn, and unless you've got a follow-up here, black's still got that hook checkmate on the horizon.
Still coming down and behind, and checkmate.
So, it's tricky, actually. It's
Really tricky.
You know, Magnus has to be careful here.
Very, very careful, and maybe take this pawn, as Ivanka mentioned.
And that's why the bar, despite all this excitement, just says, guys, it's just 0.0. Do you know what I'd do here, Simon?
Offer a draw.
Oh, wow, Magnus now down to 30 seconds. I think it's first round nerves today, but also just high quality game by both sides. They both started really fast. Vincent keeping pace with the world champion, matching him move for move.
Look at his eyes, Vincent. It seems like they're looking all over the board constantly.
Yeah.
And do you think he keeps keeping an eye on the clock? Is he looking at Magnus's camera perhaps as well? He must have been surprised the world champion went down so low, and now Vincent under 10 seconds. White did take that pawn.
So I think he can get that draw now, David, if he wants to. There is a way you can force the draw.
And that's by just checking the king?
I was going to by moving... Oh,
Moving the black knight to attack the king.
Yeah.
This is a check. The black knight can go back where it came from. Second time we've seen this position. Maybe we're going to see the game fizzle out to a draw because black is a pawn down. Black needs to do something, but white can't escape without getting checkmated. And wow, a draw in the end. What a game.
Eventually, a draw in game one. Vincent Keymer with the black